Hello, everyone. I am Scott Kober, one of the co-producers of CME Palooza, and I'd like to welcome you to one of our special features that we're calling 10 Years in 10 Minutes. This is one of our 10 anniversary features. This is our 10-year anniversary of CME Palooza, where we're looking back at the dawn of CME Palooza by catching up with some of the people who participated in our very first year of live broadcast. So I'd like to welcome Erik Brady. And Erik, I will let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Scott. So again, as I mentioned via email, 10 years is quite an accomplishment for you and Derek. And I really celebrate the opportunity to celebrate with you, especially for somebody that's kind of no longer in the CME space so much. So I'm Erik Brady. I'm the director of biomedical graduate programs at Wake Forest University. At the time that I did the original CME Palooza, I was still an employee at Clinical Care Options, which has evolved into, I think, a different name now. But in general terms, my focus there was really had everything to do with outcomes measurement. And so that was kind of the first foray into it. But yeah, what I'm doing now is largely overseeing about 20 different biomedical graduate degree programs, ensuring the operations from soup to nuts, from recruiting all the way through alumni development, things of that nature. So still in the education space, but really in more of a tangential area now.
So I'm pretty sure that you participated in a few of our early CME Palooza
That's
broadcasts.
true.
Now, in 2013, for the first one, you presented on the topic of excellent tricks for the non-expert, exploring the beauty of the cells.
Yeah.
What do you remember about that initial CME Palooza experience, whether kind of the actual presentation, the content, or just kind of what it was all about?
You know, what I remember really clearly was Derek had this concept, right? We were at the Alliance meeting in Orlando, and I had pitched a session kind of like I did for CME Palooza. I was going to go a little bit deeper, but ultimately, that session wasn't accepted. And so I was just kind of thinking, when Derek and I caught up over coffee, two introverts essentially mumbling at one another for the most part, I think. But in general, I had this concept, and I was like, well, I have an idea, and I said, but I said, you may know a little bit better than I do, but when I arrived at CCO, what I knew was the case was we were spending a fair amount of time just arranging our data, so that, and we were still at the beginnings of, because I spent another several years at CCO kind of building the outcomes machine. But in general, what I was finding at CCO was we were spending way too much time just processing data and not enough time analyzing data and trying to figure out, what the story was behind all of this mountain of data that we had. And so I remember talking to Derek and saying, do you think that, about this session, and saying, do you think it's too elementary? I mean, is it going to be too easy for people? And we kind of arrived at the notion that, at least in that day, most people didn't really have access to great software tools. We agreed that most of them would have Excel. And there were certainly things that I knew how to do in Excel that it was clear a lot of other people didn't know how to do. And, you go back and watch that video now, and it is kind of elementary. It talks about use of conditional formatting and VLOOKUPs and how you deconstruct those different functions. And I got to tell you, when I take on new staff here that I know, need that type of Excel training, I still refer them to that video and say, here's how you deconstruct a VLOOKUP. And then my, folks that report to me will come back and say, wow, I just, I've always seen that equation. I never knew how to deconstruct it. I didn't know how to use it well. And it's made a big impact. So people still use it on my team. Whether people are still using it in the CME space, I don't know. But it was kind of a fun, I think in my mind, it was new and it was unique. And it was, we had the conference, but what we lacked was, a whole lot of other opportunities there wasn't really a bucket or a container for a lot of these other types of trainings outside of the almanac. And that was all written. So I think it made, I was certainly, that's what I kind of remember about it at the time, was wondering, is this going to resonate? And then I also remember that I had slides that I was convinced I would finish in way less than the time that I had. And just like all of us, I still ran out of time at the end. So
Yes, no, but I mean, I think first of all, that's a great plug for our archives where you can watch all the sessions
Yeah.
from CME Palooza back in 2013
Yeah.
all the way up to today.
Mm-hmm.
So people can go back and watch me with hair and
Me with shorter hair.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, so here's our secret question that you were not prompted of in advance. All right,
Okay.
you currently work at Wake Forest University, where the
Indeed.
school's mascot is the Demon Deacon. What the heck is a demon?
Well, so the university does have a Baptist history, and so deacons are very much associated with the Baptist Church. Why it's a demon, you've got me. That is not something that I can articulate well. The interesting thing for me about Wake is that my family goes back at Wake a long, long time. My grandfather was actually a student at Wake Forest at the time that the university was in Wake Forest, North Carolina, which is a northeast suburb of Raleigh, and the university is now in Winston-Salem. And so he was a sports reporter at the time when he was when he was a student there, and he used to watch football games on the football field that my son then played soccer on years later, because what was Wake Forest University campus is now a combination of Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary and Wake Forest High School. And so that's, and I actually have a conversation piece in my office here, his old typewriter. I just have on display in my office. So I go deep with Wake Forest, also go deep with Black and Gold, because if you take a look at my LinkedIn profile, you'll find Appalachian State, Vanderbilt, and Wake Forest.
That explains a lot. All right, so who was the most famous athlete in Wake Forest history?
I'm going to guess Billy Packer
Really?
is what I would guess, but Tim Duncan is the one that I generally think of.
Billy Packer goes back a little ways.
Yeah, so do I.
All right, so it's been, as I said, we're CME Palooza celebrating our 10th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think that we're still around in 2024? What did Derek and then after I joined him, what did the two of us do right?
So I hit on it just a little bit, but kind of hinted around it, I guess. And I think what CME Palooza brought into the fold was accessibility. And there were a lot of people that couldn't travel to conferences, didn't have the budget, that kind of thing. But I also think that for those of us that are a little bit more introverted, conferences are just an absolute stressful situation, right? They are sometimes, I would leave conferences just so overwhelmed that I needed to go home and rock in a corner and not talk to anybody. And I think one of the things is I think CME Palooza definitely brought in an element of accessibility for people that couldn't attend conferences. But I think Derek actually had a blog post at some point where he talked about the nature of how we ask questions at conferences and how we interact with others. And the notion that everybody would feel comfortable walking up to a microphone or even raising a hand to contribute to the conversation is clearly tipped against the introvert. And so CME Palooza has the chat thread, has the comments, has all of these different opportunities to ask questions that don't force us to jump outside of a comfort zone, but still contribute to the conversation, still participate in a positive way that ultimately I think fills a huge void. So I really hope that CME Palooza will continue to be around. I know you and Derek at some points are probably like, man, I'm tired of this. Do we have to spin up and do it again? But I think I think CME Palooza definitely fills a void that frankly is missing from lots of professional societies. A lot of other professional societies still very much just focus on the live event. And while there's immense value in the live event, I think that the more these types of situations where you can participate from your desk and on your own time frame, huge benefit to the industry. And so my very best to both of you as you hopefully continue with CME Palooza.
All right. Well, great. Well, thank you, Eric. It was really cool to catch up. I think I've seen you kind of asking questions or in the chat maybe 2 or 3 years ago. So I think you still tune in from time to time, which is great.
I do.
So for folks who are watching this, while you won't see Eric as part of CME Palooza Spring on Wednesday, April 24th, you will see lots of people who are almost as brilliant. So you can find all the information about our spring broadcast and the agenda on the CME Palooza website at cmepalooza.com. So thank you, Erik, and we'll see everybody soon.
Great to see you.